It's 3 weeks after Phase 2, and Elliot, racked with guilt over the death and destruction left in his wake, commits himself to one final act. But sometimes in the depths of our despair, the universe will steer us right where we need to be. Whether that be through happy coincidence or flights of pure imagination. It's Mr. Robot, episode 3.7, Don't Delete Me, .ko. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Mr. Robot. So yes, of course, spoilers, they are coming your way. Alright, so a bit of a calmer episode this week, a little bit of a step back and re-examination of things. And that makes sense. We've had some very intense episodes the last few weeks. So, you gotta vary the pacing here. It can't all be rah, rah, rah. So, kind of need a little break or a little reassessment before we jump back into the fray of craziness. So, and before I actually get into the meat of this episode, I did want to address one thing from last week's episode that I didn't really dive into that much. And, of course, it does have its own play into this week's episode. And that is Trenton's email, her little backup idea, way of fixing possibly the whole 5-9 hack. Now, while she and Mobley were stuck inside of Leon's caddy, she had mentioned that she had to get back to her computer in order, because if she doesn't, she has this thing set up on a timer, this email, and it will be sent off to someone she trusts, just in case. A little insurance idea. And I didn't really get into that last week, and the reason being, and I've discussed this with a few of you in the comments, is it seemed almost too good, too easy. With the Dark Army, with all of the work that they have done to frame Trenton and Mobley, it seems to me that that's not something they would have missed. I mean, especially as she's talking to Mobley as Leon comes up in the parking lot of the electronics store there, while she's saying, hey, I have found this thing that I think could relate. So this was like a current thing. This isn't an idea, a plan, a backup that she had hidden for a while. This was already out when she was in Arizona. So this is a more recent thing. And at that point would be under observation by at least Leon, which means the Dark Army knows that they are there. So if they're doing all of this work to set up their place, to get rid of the roommate, and do all the hacking, get all the computer stuff that we all saw at the end of the episode last week, the fact that Dark Army wouldn't be watching her electronic communications, I just thought that there's no way they could miss that. That there's no way they would go through all of this work and not be paying attention to what she's doing online. Now, yeah, it could be some secret kind of backup hush-hush email system, and yes, she is a genius, and yes, she is a hacker, but the Dark Army, Elliot went to the Dark Army because he needed their help for the Chinese part of the hack and everything. So these are not neophytes, So I didn't get into it because all I thought was there is no way the Dark Army is going to forget that and to miss that. But apparently they did. And apparently the person that Trenton trusts is Elliot, which also kind of surprised me. I mean, almost thought she sent it to her brother. And after that whole scene when he went in and ended up bringing out the lollipop, I was thinking, I've got a file, it's an email from my sister, or something. It would have been a reach. But sending it to Elliot, who's part of F Society, I mean, he would know everything, but just, I don't know. The idea that after everything that went down, especially last season, that Elliot would be someone that she trusts, seemed a little out there. Obviously, he did get the email. That's how we ended the episode. So yeah, we're doing things kind of in reverse. But this is important. This is a big overshadow towards everything. And I was able to read much of what the email said. Squinting and getting close to the TV there. But it basically talks about she was thinking about Romero. That Romero had installed encrypted keystroke loggers on all of the machines. at the arcade. And the keystroke logger means it records every keystroke that you do. And by that, they would be able to back up all of the programming, back up any of the encrypted codes that were used to solidify and encrypt all of the 5.9, all of the hacked information from e-corp, and basically reverse everything. Now, those keystroke loggers are on all of the equipment that was in the arcade, and that was taken by the NYPD and now in the hands of the FBI. So they've taken the equipment and they did an image copy of all of the data. So they have all of the data. If they can get into the encrypted keystroke loggers, they could either find the codes to unlock the information that's all hidden and split up and all over the world in the cloud, or possibly find those codes, basically rebuild those codes in order to access it. So that is the point that Trenton is trying to do of the backdoor of reversing. They didn't erase all the information. It got pulled and encrypted and sort of scattered out all everywhere. This would enable them to piece that information back together. And by doing so, they would reverse the damage that was done through 5.9. Of course, to do that, you would have to get all of that information from the FBI, which easily points out where Elliot's next move would be. And as for this week's file type, .ko is a kernel object. A kernel in the Linux operating system is, well, it's the operating system. It is the core programming for the system. So a KO, a kernel object, is a modifier. It's basically gone in to add functionality to your core program. And that's really what Elliot's going through this week, is he's trying to modify his own personal program. It has all fallen out. He is in the dumps. Not only does he cause all this death and destruction, but e-corp is going to be just fine. Why? Because they have e-coin. That's going to boost them up. Yeah, Philip's job is pretty much done, but that's not the point. I'll actually find out what I actually hope to fill up next week. But point being is, all of that work, all of that destruction, all of that chaos, and the actual goal was always not going to occur, was going to be taken away. No happy circumstance, no plus side to any of this from Elliot's point of view. And now, 3 weeks later, he's done. He's given up. Mr. Robot, he can't get rid of. He has done everything that he could. He has tried drugs. He has tried therapy. He has tried everything that he possibly could do, even throwing himself in jail, to try and get rid of Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot, while the cause of all of this, Elliot has accepted that that's him. He is Mr. Robot. And since he's part of that, in a way, he kind of likes it. So he can't trust himself that he's not going to cause any more destruction. Plus, also, he's feels like he's got to sort of pay a price for all of that. So he has decided to check out. Done. Sayonara, sign off. Clears out his computer, backs up the stuff, clears out, wipes all of his hard drives and microwaves, everything, stuff that he does all the time, sort of clear things out. Cleaning up his life, getting someone to look after the dog, and wants to say his last final goodbyes. This is a very standard move for someone who is feeling suicidal. Which, by a serious note, also pay attention to. If you do have someone in your life that is acting this way, get them help. Talk to them, connect. Depression is a very real thing, and its effects can be devastating. So, just a little aside, these are important things to pay attention to. But he is saying goodbye to Darlene with the standard, "I will see you tomorrow." No, don't be here today. I've got plans. But come back tomorrow. We'll do all those things that we love to do. Again, very standard. Make sure the dog is taken care of because he doesn't want the dog to be suffering because of him. And then goes off and says his goodbyes. Wants to make up to Mobley's brother. Try and say something good about him. Try and go to Trenton's parents. Try and say something good about her before he finally makes his move off into Coney Island, his family's grand getaway, to say his final goodbyes. So that's his plan, at the very least. And as plans go, things don't really work out the way that he intended to. And really, most of the episode is just, it's just tracking through his psyche. we're dealing with the two reactions that we have from the terrorists. We have Mobley's brother on one hand, who is scared, embarrassed, self-centered, sees just how Mobley's death is affecting him. I might lose my job. Yes, that's very real, but certainly doesn't know his brother, doesn't support his brother, thinks of him only as a terrorist. And then you have Trenton's parents, the exact opposite. Loves their daughter, knows this is not something that she would do, knows that there is lies, and feeling that just because she's a Muslim, she is being framed for this crime. So two very different ways of seeing the personal impact of associated to Trenton and Mobley. And through this, we get to meet Trenton's little brother, who apparently seems to follow Elliot all the way to the beach. And that is honestly where things get interesting. Because, of course, the main idea here we have is, where the hell did this kid come from? He even says it. I don't know how I got here. I don't know where I'm from. I don't know anything. It took a moment to recognize that that was Trenton's little brother, or looks like Trenton's little brother. But he is right in Elliot's face. And yes, he might be concerned and curious about, why do you think positive things about my sister? But this is where I'm talking about where the universe is steering things. And we know from the opening part of the episode, which I thought was really kind of clarifying and scary in the same way, is the last encounter between him and his dad before his dad sort of collapsed. I don't know if that's when he died, or if that was just a sign of further evolution of his sickness. Certainly little Elliot's pretty cold and mad. Yeah, I can understand being mad at his parents. But going back in to watch the movie by himself after Dad collapses down, that's cold. But in that scene, in that moment, he becomes his father. This might be the first kind of beginnings of Mr. Robot establishing in his psyche. He takes his dad's jacket, he puts it on, he goes, sits down in the theater, and then he starts talking to what seems like him. He even looks down like he's looking at a smaller person. Hey, quiet, the movie's about to start. So to me, this is the idea that this is the first time that Elliot is creating someone to help guide him through his life, to reestablish a level of normalcy. So as for our little boy, I'm not sure he's even real. I mean, it's again, this is where we talk about the blend of happy coincidence and flights of imagination. It's really convenient that this little boy goes and pushes and is pushing Elliot, not just for an answer, or not just curious about his sister and how Elliot knows him, but why are you here? What are you doing? That's a big bag of stuff. Why do you want to be all big? He is pushing Elliot to ask these questions, to kind of admit to himself what his whole intentions are, to say it out loud. Because it's one thing to think about all of these things. It's something else to have to say it out loud, to accept that reality, to the point that it's not just in your head, that you're acknowledging out into the world. And that's really what seems to be happening throughout all of this. It's an exploration of Elliot's purpose in life, that there is more to go on. It's not just death. You can be there for someone. There is excitement. They go to the movies. The kid's pushing the movies. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to the movies. And he goes, and it just happens to be October 15th, 2015, the Back to the Future Day. Back to the Future 2, when Marty McFly comes from the 1980s and comes up into the future and starts the whole thing with Biff Tannen. Amazing coincidence day that's when the kid wants to go. And Elliot himself is thinking, wow, I've always wanted to come here since I was a kid. Now, when we do have the two cosplayers in line mentioning about the purpose of the film and what it's all about, the guy who's dressed up like Marty, does acknowledge the kid. He looks at the kid and he looks at Marty, or to Elliot. So it's not just, I'm paying it, it's not just I'm talking to the one guy here and not acknowledging the other thing, and a whole kind of like Sixth Sense or previous sort of Mr. Robot incarnations here. Now, that also means that these two people who are talking about the purpose of the film, how one mistake can blow up and become some giant cascading thing, could also be points of Elliot's imagination. The kid talks about not knowing how to get home, and yet once they're going, he seems another shortcut to go through, and it's all past the mosque and everything, which again informs Elliot about the whole mosque. Once the kid runs away from the movie theater, then we have the Jewish ice cream salesman who knows all the mosques and has connections to the area. I mean, I love that scene. There's just the multiple imagery and ideas going on in that, which is beautiful and perfect. But again, strange coincidence. Now we've got a guide. He happens to know exactly where the mosques are, and he knows people that are there, and then he finds the one, and that's where the kid is. No one else is in there. Yes, it's late at night, but I don't know about houses of worship. I don't know about mosques and how late they are and how popular they are. The point being is, in all these circumstances, these people could be there or not be there. The fact that this all sort of works out in a clean way is why I'm thinking that in some ways it might be Elliot's psyche battling and trying to convince him that there is a reason to continue. There's something going on. And that's what I talked about when he has that face-off with the kid in the mosque who's saying, I wish you were dead, and I wish I was too. That's that acknowledgement. You know, after that point, there is that sort of shift and change. Once he says that and realizes that maybe I don't, that's where things sort of start to shift up. And then, of course, at the end, when the kid finally gets into his house, because he had the key the whole time, when he asks Elliot, can I see you again? I think this is the indication that this is, again, a part of himself, a new part of himself that can come up. So, it is entirely possible that the kid is real, with a lot of very strange coincidence and circumstance to get all these things happening all in the same time. But in some ways, I think it might be more interesting as a whole battle going on in Elliot's psyche as a way to convince himself that there is still work to do. And so Elliot now, with a renewed purpose, having spent the day with the little boy, pulled him away from his depression, kept him focused on other things, re-examining his life, and now with an idea that there is possibly more that he could do, better directions that he could go in, starts out to at least fix a few of the closer things in his world. First off, of course, Mowgli's brother, who he had already hacked. His was the name in the very beginning of the episode when Elliot was cleaning up his disk and taking care of his computer. That's who he had hacked, because that's who we found out about Hard Andy, who I loved, and got all that information. So we already had this information before he even went up to the guy's place. But it's awesome how he returns now. It's like, by the way, you should change your password. I got into your system. You've been doing some bad stuff. Here's some drugs that one of your clients sells. You can sell that to pay for the funeral, but I want to invite you're going to do this right. That's old Elliot. You're going to do the right thing, and I'm going to make sure you do the right thing because you've been doing wrong stuff before. Classic Elliot getting back into the form of things. And then, of course, reconnecting with Angela, who really has not been doing well. Not been doing well at all, and certainly wasn't the last time that we saw her. So I like the little moment that they had between the two of them. Great lighting differentials of where they are and where they're coming from. I mean, the imagery in that was perfect and beautiful. And then the story of the wishing, to bring out these are the things that we wish, which is, again, an obvious point of meaning here, since they both wish that things were different, that they could fix what was going on or what had happened. But it's a great story, and definitely draws her out. And I like his idea that it wasn't about what you got, it was the wishing that was the important part. And that was something that you don't get. Because as a kid, you're just looking for the end. As you get older, you start to realize, again, it's not the destination, it's the journey. That doing the whole thing is really, that joy of wishing, that sharing of the ideas is really what's the most important part. That's the exploration that's fun. That's what joins people together. And then followed up with Angela's line, of course, is no matter what happens, we will have each other. Everything's going to be okay. So, ends on a nice note there. Pulling her out, a little redemptive arc, which is why it's then perfect when he goes home and finds that email from Trenton saying, well, you had a wish? Maybe this is a way we can make that wish happen. All right, so just a couple of small things. One, of course, Hard Andy's pure grade, top shelf, all name brand supply. That's beautiful. One, I love the name. Two, if you're going to present a whole briefcase full of drugs, it is important to have them individually wrapped and color coded so they look nice. Anyway, I love the scene. Hard Andy was a little creepy, of course, but not surprising. Does in some way talk about that there is something more to live for, though maybe not what he's offering. But anyway, I love the scene. I love the briefcase. I love the title. It was just perfect. The Mr. Robot jacket is another one of those happy coincidences or flights of imagination. You can go either way. Sure, it seems that he is trying to delete himself, specifically to delete Mr. Robot, and deleting himself in order to accomplish that end would make sense that he would get rid of his dad's old jacket. The fact that it is dropped off with the trash directly in front of him as he gets home, again, bit of coincidence. Is that mental process going on, or is it just the universe working things out that way? I'm thinking the former. M&M's and popcorn. What a tasty combination. Yum, yum, yum. Actually, haven't tried that. I think I might have to do that next time just to see if it's all good, but chocolate and salty together, I can see the appeal. Oh, also in that first scene, we saw that Elliot had his arm still in the cast. So I think one of the reasons that he was upset at Dad, not only is he dying, but also Dad had just pushed him out a window. So, you know, I love how they have kind of given Christian Slater's Mr. Robot, the dad part, really that good range of emotions. That yes, sometimes it's hard, but really showing how much he cared for his son, even if he didn't always know the best way to show it. Oh, and that the little boy was born in Trenton, which is where Trenton got her hacker name from. I just thought that was sweet, and also shows a strong family bond between the brother and sister. A lot of love there. Oh, and yes, the concessions person did acknowledge to Elliot about the little boy. He said, you know, he pieced out. But he could be talking about any boy. Also, the guy could be part of Elliot's imagination too. I love the two people just making out there in front of the concession stand. That was weird. But it also answers the question, why would the kid want to go to the movie so bad and then take off before it really even starts? Just curious. And of course, time travel. Let us not forget that. Now, I did say last week that because of the way that things work out, that White Rose's story to Angela about time travel being the goal of this didn't have to be true. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying it didn't have to be in order to convince Angela there. However, we have hit time travel on many, many occasions, on many points throughout this show. So yes, I still think that is most likely the direction that we are going. I mean, you get a Back to the Future reference going on in the stories about time traveling and mistakes and fixing things and stuff like that. You know, you tend to believe that is. Well, and I think that pretty much covers everything, or next week I'll be here talking about what I forgot to talk about this week. But that's it for tonight. Only 2 episodes left this season. So a lot of things to happen. Elliot's back on the attack. Maybe try and get a little justice for Trenton and Mowgli, and get back at make sure that White Rose and Philip pay the price for what they've done. So we'll have to wait till next week. Very excited. So thank you so much for joining me. Now, if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, throw those down in the section below. What do you guys think about the episode? Do you think the boy was real, or just a piece of Elliot's imagination to steer him in the right direction? And the whole time travel thing. What do you guys think about that? Anyway, throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. And if you're not a subscriber, please join us. It's quick, it's easy, it doesn't cost you anything. Takes one little move, and that's clicking my face right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up our latest couple reviews right here, and you can check those out. So, that's going to be it for me. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.